Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of the Rouge Rugby podcast, where we focus on real Canadian rugby. I'm Stu Hardy, joined as always by Derek Brissett. Derek, we have had the final stage of the pool games in the Rugby World Cup. We've had some men's rugby action going on in South America, and there's the continuing competitions going on in Europe as well. Were you able to catch any of the games over the weekend? And by that, I mean, we all wanted to watch the men's game take place against Chile and Brazil. Unfortunately, that stream was unable to continue after, I believe, 15 minutes. So we just had to text up. But apart from that minor technical issue, how was your rugby watching?
Yeah, it was good. Yeah, I was actually at work on Friday afternoon while that game was happening, so I didn't even realize that the stream was down. The first time I got a chance to check my phone, I saw a tweet saying that there was 9 yellow cards in the game, and quickly wondering what the hell is happening down there. So that was kind of wild. And 9 yellow cards. It's a lot, man. It looks like it was basically a league game at this point. Because I'm not sure how often they actually had 15 guys on the field for each team.
Well, I think it was tribute because the Rugby League World Cup is currently happening now.
Yeah,
no idea who's winning, who's leading that. Do not care. It is the second most important Rugby World Cup that is currently taking place, in my opinion.
I was going to say, you know what this game and the Rugby League World Cup have in common is that nobody was able to watch it. So
yeah, exactly. So.
But I think, so it was like, that was good. Obviously, the World Cup continued to, have a lot of entertaining games. Obviously, we'll dive into the Canada game earlier, but, we got the quarterfinals decided, and I mean, no real surprises there, I guess. Canada, New Zealand, and England, the only 3 undefeated teams through the pool stage. So, kind of interesting that the way the draw goes is, as we'll talk about later, but Canada ends up with essentially just a rematch with the United States, which is fun. Right. And, plenty of other great matchups for the quarterfinals, which I'm sure we'll talk about later. But, it was an exciting final round to close out the tournament. Lots of great tries, lots of, exciting play that was showcased down in New Zealand. So it was great. Saracens 6-0. Just get that little mention in there.
Well, the Ospreys lost to the Dragons, so it looks like it's going to be another long season down in Swansea.
Yeah, that's a shame. Dang.
Yeah. But anyway, let's stop talking about all these minor games and let's focus on the real meat and potatoes, and that is the clash between the old enemy Canada versus the USA. So the team that was ranked 3rd in the world versus the team that was ranked 6th in the world at the start of the tournament, at least. And Canada had already qualified for the quarterfinals, so as long as they had at least 1 losing bonus point, then they would have topped the pool stage. So, this was more an effort of get things done, try out some new things if possible. Don't worry about it too much, kind of thing. And then, of course, I say that there's also the pride factor coming in. If this had been any other team, sure, you may have gone a little bit easy, maybe gone a bit more wild in what you want to do. You don't need to get 4 tries unless you're playing the USA.
No, and you need to get 4 tries. 15 from 15 is different than 14 from 15.
That is true. Yeah, but, as in, even from a group stage performance, as in, if you're top in the pool, you already know you're making to the quarterfinals, you're probably going to have a better draw of the dice. However, because of the way that the pool is drawn, it is of the ranked positions. So whoever of the first place in any of the pool stages, they would be ranked 1, 2, and 3. And they would be, so team 1 will be facing team 8, team 2 will be facing team 7, team 3 will be facing team 6. So ideally, like, the higher your number is, the theoretically easier your opposition will be in the quarterfinals. So obviously every team's gunning to get that first place, which was won by the host New Zealand, who will be playing Wales again.
A lot of rematches in the.
I think. Well, this is the interesting.
I guess the
thing.
2 wild card teams at the end kind of can go anywhere, right?
Yeah, it was one of the things as well is that because of there only being 12 teams and because of the draw of the quarterfinals. Remember, this is the first time that a women's Rugby World Cup has had quarterfinals in
Mm-hmm.
it. And because there's 12 teams, it is this like awkward draw of these teams get to go through, second team gets to go through, and then it's the top two of the three third teams go through. And if it was going to be 12 teams at the next World Cup as well, I would say maybe put in like a rule of saying that if you played this team in the pool stage, you don't have to face them in the quarterfinals. But however, the next World Cup will be expanded to 16 teams. So my assumption is they're going to just take the top two from each pool, and then we avoid this mess altogether again. So it's fine this time round.
I was gonna say I don't really I would disagree with that. Like I don't really think it's a mess. I mean, it's just the nature of you have three pools, so you get the pool winners that all go in, or the top two or whatever all go in, and then you have to finish that off. You need the two like essentially they're wild card teams, and I mean those teams got to come from somewhere, right? So there's obviously the chance that you're going to end up, and I mean to be honest with you too, like I think it's great because you get like I mean for Canada, the USA, like it's another like big rivalry match. It adds a little bit more intrigue knowing that the high going into the game, the high possibility that the two teams would be playing again, right? So it does add a little bit more intrigue to like how you maybe strategically go about it, as we kind of saw once Canada wrapped up that bonus point, started pulling out Kevin Ruiz started pulling out a lot of key players like Sophie Goody, right, to rest her up for the quarterfinals.
Let's talk about the game itself. So started off with a Canadian try coming from who else but I believe the leading try scorer in this tournament.
Leading point scorer in the tournament.
Leading point scorer as
point
well.
And tries.
Wow.
So, yeah.
5 minutes in, driving Maul, who else but Emily Tatosi, dotting down for the first try of the game. The conversion was unsuccessful in this instance, but sure enough, we had a follow-up by Tessier scoring in the 15th minute. That one got the boot of Sophie de Good. I mean, at that point, when you're that close to the post, Sophie, you really should be kicking those. Then it was Kelter for the USA. So the Americans getting their first try of the game at the 20-minute mark. Kelter then converting her own try. So always good to see. And then just before the end of the first half, we had Faris come over for her first try of the game, and De Goody able to get that conversion as well. Second half was a bit slower pace. Obviously Canada's looking to get the bonus point, but the USA are putting a bit more pressure on them this time round. They're having their own attack, and both teams are racking up errors as the games go on as well. So that's like killing momentum for either side as things are going on. And then it looked as though that the USA had scored a try from Tess Fury. However, it was reviewed that an American player had obstructed a Canadian defender, and as such, that try was disallowed.
Yeah, just a little bit of obstruction.
Just a little bit of obstruction with her entire body connecting with
just
the entire. No intention to wrap or anything like that. But either way, there was a turnover. It got Canada within space of a line out, not a driving maul this time, and as such, it became a goal line dropout, but that was able to be brought around, and then it was then brought for another driving maul. This time, it seems though the players were going for Tatosi, but it was actually Olivia de Merchant who was able to get the bonus point try for Canada. It wasn't the end of everything. The USA had been pushing and they still wanted to prove that they could get Canada on the ropes. Obviously it had pretty much been a foregone conclusion that the USA would qualify for the quarterfinals and would be playing Canada again, so they wanted to send a message saying we're not going to take this line down, I'm going to show you what we're going to do. And American captain Kate Zachary was able to get over for the try in the 70th minute, was Celtic converted as well. But that wouldn't be all we would hear from Zachary, because eventually, a lot of frustration, and Zachary committed a deliberate knock on. The referee gave a yellow card. So the final couple of minutes, the USA were down to 14, and that allowed the final try to be scored by Michaela Nelson, just diving over the line, and the clock had gone red at this point. Holly stepped up to do the conversion. As we said, Sophie de Goody was off at this point. Unfortunately, that conversion went wide to leave the final score Canada 29, USA 14. And it was announced earlier this week that both Taylor Perry, which was announced just on the broadcast before the game against Italy, but as well Brianna Miller, are out of Canada's squad for the Rugby World Cup. It was actually reported that Brianna Miller had what was described as significant internal injuries from the game against Italy. So, wishing both Miller and Perry the swiftest of recoveries, and we hope to see them in Canada jerseys again. Unfortunately, you won't be at the World Cup, but, hopefully we'll see them don the maple leaf once more on their route to the 2025 World Cup. So, Derek, what did you make of this game?
Yeah, man, I loved it. It's obviously, nice to get a win against the United States, wherever you're playing that, yet alone at a World Cup. Obviously, the bonus point, very key, for like position and standings and all that. Really nice to just, we talked going into the tournament that Canada is one of the best teams in the world, right?
Yeah.
Like the expectation is probably going into the tournament is probably minimum semifinals, and there's reason to pick them to win the tournament as well, right?
Yeah.
Having the team come in, go 3-0 in the pool stage, picking up a bonus point in each of them, being one of just two teams in the tournament to go 15 from 15 as far as the points table points that you can acquire in the pool stage is it's obviously great, right? And I know throughout along the way, especially if you look at like social media and stuff during games, along the way people may point out a couple handling errors or a missed tackle here and there, but overall, like at the end of the day, there's obviously always going to be room for improvement, and there's still area to grow and keep improving as the tournament goes on. And obviously you want to continue to peak as the tournament goes on too. But at the end of the day, they're a team that is expected to do some great things at this tournament, and they got the first job done, right? They ran through the pool stage. None of the games were particularly close either. Right, so it's scoring tries, especially through the Maul, as evidenced by the fact that Emily Tatosi is the leading scorer of the tournament. The Maul, it looks unstoppable right now. And,
there were a couple of instances where it was stopped, but we'll talk about that later.
Yeah, because it was stopped because the USA didn't set up a Maul, because the Maul's unstoppable.
Exactly. Well,
yeah, right. So there you go. So like the Maul's looking pretty unstoppable right now, and which is unreal. And I mean, like, it's looking forward to next week, right? That's going to be one of the, I would imagine it's going to be a continued talking point, because the USA lineout wasn't very good. Canada stole the ball 3 times in the lineout, had a handful of others that they just kind of helped make it like really messy. De Goody and Sabota were outstanding at just getting up in the air and disrupting whatever USA was throwing at them. And I think like that's going to be something we are probably going to be talking about a lot leading up until into the game next week, because like that seemed to be like a big area where the game kind of like where Canada has a very clear and decided edge, and as a way to score a lot of tries, and a way for like the USA maybe giving up a couple opportunities because they missed lineouts, or lineouts got stolen, right? So that's certainly going to be an interesting area of the game going into next week. This game as a whole, though, man, Alex Tessier at 10,
Yeah.
love it.
Yeah.
Love
That
it.
was great to see.
Attack was so dynamic. I like, to talk about like a couple players here. That one play in the first half where Tessier chose to, inside their own 22, chose to kick ahead for Corrigan to run onto, and that's how they got out of the 22.
Yeah, that was
Just inject that into my veins all day. I love watching that stuff. That obviously went to Corrigan, who just kept racking up meters after meters every time she touched the ball. Hell of a way to break in your first ever World Cup game. Just a casual player of the match award.
yeah.
She had some outstanding runs, not only off that play that I just mentioned, but the build up to Tessier's try, the build up to a couple other tries, getting Canada into some great field position at other points. There was just some just brilliant play like all around for Canada too. There's obviously, you mentioned the Olivia DeMarchant's try, right? And it's like, what like is so great about that too is it's like Canada chooses to like run the ball out of the 22. DeGoody gets a huge line break, a couple phases. Tessier gets the ball and kicks down into deep into USA territory. The chase from Corrigan is like unbelievably perfect.
Yeah.
Right. She makes a great tackle. Caljuvi gets there and gets there too, gets a breakdown steal. And it's like that's all that comes from just the confidence to kind of run the ball out of the 22, but also just like flawlessly executing the entire way up the pitch, whether that was like, support. Because that's the play where DeGoody kind of like has a huge line break and then, to borrow a football term, kind of does like a little like button hook to kind of come back to her like team to make sure there's support there. And then the support gets there and they're able to like continue. The ball's kicked ahead. Corrigan with an unreal chase. Caljuvi, because the Americans just isolated there with the steal. And then obviously we talked about how great the Maul is, so they just execute out the line out in the Maul. Watching like tries like that develop are, those like, man, just bottle that up. But if you can do that for 80 minutes, like there's probably not a team that can beat you in the world if you can bottle that up and play like do that for 80 minutes. And that's going to be tough for any team in the world to beat you if you make those types of plays and play like that. Through like the rest of the game, like Ferry's try was sweet too, like that, because that came after Canada was held up over the try line.
Yeah.
Right. The Maul didn't quite pan out on that play, but that came there, and it was just a really quick counter attack. And Ferries has been outstanding this tournament too.
I think Ferries and to me, a lot of the backs have had great tournament, like Ferries, Caljuvi, Alicia Corrigan, even though it was her first game in the World Cup. Just set the pitch alight.
Yeah, exactly. And then you have a lot of like the forwards and stuff are all playing really well too. I mean, obviously, that's a big the fact that the Maul is working like as well as it is too, like, just kind of go to the fact that the Maul is working as well as it is obviously like, a credit to the forwards. But even like, like Paquin to Tosi both had 13 tackles in this game too, right? Like they're up, showing off like incredible work rate and things like that too. That are obviously key to helping teams win. Canada's been doing unreal, like a great job at the breakdown throughout the tournament. There's obviously, Sophie DeGoody's been a monster. She had a handful of like steals and drew a couple penalties in the breakdown. Seemed like the USA was, kind of struggling whenever she ended up at one of those breakdowns. So like that obviously I think had a big factor in the game too, because like throughout the tournament, that's kind of been two areas where Canada seems to have an edge on a lot of the, at least the other teams they played so far in the pool stage, is the breakdown and the set piece, right? And to be I mean, like those are two really, really big areas of the game of rugby. And then in this game, I think more so than the Japan and Italy game, like the attack kind of seemed a little bit more dynamic. Like when you start seeing like those plays that we were talking about with like, that set up those tries or whatever, right? Or even like when you have a team that has the confidence to just be like ball in hand, let's, we're 10 meters out from our own try line, but we're gonna run this. Right. And it works and it pans out, or we're going to kick ahead and we're going to have, Alicia Corrigan in stride is going to be able to run onto the ball perfectly. And, we're going to end up in your 22 in 5 seconds. Like, when you kind of have a team where you start building up your attack and it gives the perception of like, you can score from anywhere. Like that's tough for defenses, right? To handle, because you got to be thinking about more things, because now you've seen Canada show the ability of being able to attack, like even in like maybe not the best position on the field, but showing the ability to attack from even inside the 22, which they were using to create a lot of offensive opportunities in this game. And I'm sure it's going to be something that the USA coaches are looking at pretty in depthly as the week goes on up until the rematch.
I guess there were like plenty of positives to take away from this game. Again, another 5-point win, no losing bonus point to the opposition, no try bonus point for the opposition as well. So, always good. I'd say that the only areas of concern that can be addressed in this coming week are mainly things that we've already been talked about, such as there was still a fair few number of like missed tackles that could have made the score a lot closer than it actually was. Also, a lot of when you get these like new attacking plays, I say new as if they haven't been coached on this for the past 2 months. But when you have like more attacking plays or more opportunity to attack, a lot of passing was going to like feet, and there were a few like issues with that. I don't want to isolate Pelletier, but I think it's also because she's had to come in to cover for Miller at scrum half, and a few of those passes weren't going to the right position on the player. They were going to the right player, but their feet and not their hands. So, but as the game went on, accuracy improved. So, and it's just something in the back of my mind of like, I fully believe that come the quarterfinals, Canada can put in like a similar performance, get the win, make it through to the semifinals, qualify automatically for the 2025 World Cup. But one thing that really stood out was, and it was brought up by the commentators as well, is that it's taking players like half a second to a second too long to support players. So there was a number of turnovers that the USA won, and it was just because the Canadian attack wasn't getting there in time. And you mentioned it yourself when Sophie de Goody got that break and then found herself on all sides by the white shirts of American players. She had to basically stop and turn around and see where the rest of her teammates were, because they were just a little bit too far back. And obviously these athletes are basically doing like an full contact endurance. They're going 18 minutes getting like hit and running back and then catching and so on and so forth. But it's cases where you see that like certain American players were able to get there and support their players in tackles and in rucks and stuff like that, while the Canadians were just a little bit behind the times, so to speak. But I do believe that all these things can be addressed this coming week. It may even be 4D chess of America. Yeah, we're playing the Americans next week. We don't want to give away all answers at this one point.
I don't even know if it is like, I mean, if it is that, like, I mean, like, I get it. Like, there was a couple, like Canada had but like, if you kind of look at the World Rugby stats that they have, it's basically, according to that, the Americans only had 3 turnovers the whole game, So it's like, yeah, when support's slow, there's a turnover, so you notice it. But also, like, I think that example I was trying to give with the Sophie De Goody plays, like, I think that's just a smart play from De Goody. And then, like, she does that, she makes that little move that buys her teammates time, and then the teammates secure the ball, right? Which is kind of what you want to be doing. So yeah, there was 3 turnovers and stuff. I think, like, there's a couple of things that, like, I think, like, yeah, there's a few missed tackles and stuff that I agree can come up a little bit higher, and stuff. The handling errors in this game, to be honest with you, I'm really curious because World Rugby's stat page doesn't divide it. I'd be curious to see what the handling errors totals were like for first half versus second half, for Canada, because, like, the first half was just like Canada had the ball way more.
Yeah.
And it's like it's one of those things where it's kind of like they had the ball the whole time, and it's like there's going to be handling errors that, like, handling errors are going to happen, and you obviously want to minimize that. But I think when you have the ball, I think maybe as disproportionately as Canada had it in the first half, it looks like there's a couple more handling errors, but, like, in relation to how long they had the ball, it's not that bad. Like, I guess what I'm trying to get is, like, I remember when I was working for, like, a hockey team, and the coach pointed out that, like, he doesn't, like, look at, like, the giveaway stats very often, right? Because it's like if you take the NHL and you look at the giveaway leaders, they're all some of the best players in the league. But the reason that they give the puck away is because they have the puck all the time. Right. So it's like they have more giveaways, right? So it's like, I think sometimes it's like at a game like this, it's like I didn't find the handling errors that bad to me, because I was like, in the first half, I was like, Canada just has the ball a lot.
Yeah.
Right. And it's like, like, the USA doesn't have that many handling errors because they didn't touch the ball. Like, you didn't, you know what I mean? Like,
yeah, I get it.
You don't have the ball. You can, like, in order, it's one of those weird things where it's like, in order to make a handling error, you almost have to be doing something inherently right to even have the opportunity to screw that up.
It's like it's basically bias statistics. It's like,
yeah, exactly.
It's like, those guys made like 10 handling errors, and we only made 1 handling error. Therefore, we're better handling the ball. It's like, yes, but you only held the ball once.
You had, exactly right. It's like you held the exactly right, and it's kind of like similar things. It's like like it's like the losing team usually. I don't think in this case, but, like, there's some stats that kind of correlate like that. I find where it's like the losing team's going to make more tackles.
Yeah,
that's what generally happens, right? And it's like you kind of look at that, and it's like maybe that's because they're good defensively, but also it's maybe because the other team had the ball a lot more, right? So they had to make more tackles, and they were losing.
Well, actually, interestingly, from the stats from this game,
I know.
Canada made more tackles, but
I'm sure there's a ton of people yelling at me that's completely not true. Anyways, I'm prepared to fully show me, like, a list of games that have happened. But, like, hey, you know what? I'm willing to learn. So if you want to, feel free to prove me wrong on some of these theories and stuff too. Even the handling error thing, right? Like, I mean, obviously, those are all things that you want to, like, so the point that I'm trying to make is that, yes, there's handling errors. Yes, there's missed tackles. Yes, there's other mistakes that the Canadian team has been making. But at the same time, it's like they've dominated these games.
Yeah.
Right. Like, at what point over the watching Japan, Italy, USA, as a Canadian fan, at what point were you worried?
I think I was worried when Japan scored a try immediately after Canada scored a try. But
all right, sweet.
But that was only a temporary thing.
Yeah, exactly. Like, at what point? I'll rephrase this. At what point were you like, I'm concerned Canada's going to lose this game?
Oh, never.
Yeah, exactly. Like, it's all, like, locked up, and I mean, it's all been locked up, and it's So I mean, from that point of view, like, I'm happy with the way the tournament's gone. It's like there's obviously going to be areas in which you can improve, and yes, obviously, like, even like the hockey coach analogy that I was using earlier, it's like, some of the best players in the NHL give the puck away a lot, but you would prefer that they don't.
Yeah.
Right. Like, even if you do have the puck a lot, you obviously don't want that. And same with, like, here, it's like, you obviously don't want handling errors, you don't want missed tackles. And you do obviously want to improve on that, but I don't think those details like are obviously stuff that you have to address, but at the same time, Canada's dominating all these games, right? So it's like I'm sure it'll I don't know. It gives me confidence going into the pool stage, especially realistically, quarterfinal. It's a team you already beat. So it's a team you already beat using the exact way that Canada is going to beat teams too. Right. So I don't like, I'm looking at this quarterfinal right now, and it's like Canada needs to do basically what they just did this week. Right. And it's kind of going to be on the USA to figure out a different game plan to counter this.
Yeah, it's going to be basically the USA need to, if they do have a trick up their sleeve, it's now's the time to show it because this game, even if you have, because of the loss against Italy, you know that you're just going to be like the third ranked team. This was the game for the USA to, mix it up, try something new. If it does work, great. If it doesn't, don't worry, we've got another game plan to fall back on. So I'm interested in how the quarterfinal is going to go because obviously there's much more on the line than a pool stage. But again, I don't see the overall result being different. I see another strong victory for Canada. And then in moving on to the semifinals, let's not talk about the semifinals for now. Let's just focus on what's coming up directly ahead. And let's talk about some of the other results that happened this weekend. So first up, we had Australia versus Wales. Now, I don't know if I'd mentioned this, but being a Wales fan, I'm usually very pessimistic. And my pessimism was right again. It was a close game in the first half, and it turned out there was very few scoring opportunities for either team. But in the end, it was Australia that walked away victors, 13-7. Wales getting the losing bonus point, which was also enough for them to qualify as the 8th ranked team for the quarterfinals. So congratulations to them. Scotland, they've had a tough tournament. I think there's been for the games against Wales and Australia, I think there were instances in which they could have won either of those games. But against New Zealand, the Black Ferns wanted to keep their 100% record going as well. And boy, did they do it. Is a try 5 points? Is it going to be 7 points? Well, New Zealand added both of them together to make 57 points over Scotland. So, yeah, final score 57-0. That was not the only game to have a nil score in it. We have France playing against the newcomers Fiji, and they put them to the sword as well. Final score France 44, Fiji 0. Then we had Japan versus Italy. This was it started off again as a close game, but then Italy, ranked 5th in the world at the start of the tournament, really punished Japan as well. Final score Japan 8, Italy 21. I think I used punish a bit too early because the next result seems absolutely punishment. So England have this knack of not losing. And last week they played France and were unable to get the try bonus point. So they took all the tries they wanted to score in that game and combined it with all the tries that they were going to score in this game. And we get the final result of England 75, South Africa 0.
Yeah.
Oh boy,
so probably a bad time to mention that Canada beats the winner of Canada USA plays the winner of England Australia.
We don't need to talk about the semifinals now. That's a bit too far in the future. Let's just focus on the next match that is coming up, and that will be a bit of deja vu because it is going to be against the USA. This time it is going to be slightly later. It's going to be burning the midnight oil for those of us on the East Coast because it is an 11:30 p.m. kickoff Eastern time, and that will be on Saturday, the 29th of October. So this coming Saturday, 11:30 p.m. Eastern time and 8:30 p.m. Pacific. Right, we're going to keep it talking about the Canadian national team, but we're going to move over to the men. But it's not their full senior squad. It's only their Canada 15 playing because the Americas Rugby Trophy was playing its second round of 3. Chile had already put in a victory over Brazil and just needed another win to win the trophy, and they were playing the Canada 15 as well. It started off well for Canada. Not only did they have the first try of the game, but the stream was working. And Chile got back in with a penalty. And then after 15 minutes, if anyone was trying to watch the stream, it stopped. So now, to be fair, it was organized by Brazil Rugby. There had been releases from Rugby Canada earlier to explain there had been technical issues, and technical issues were still ongoing because it originally was meant to be on the Brazil Rugby YouTube page. Instead, it was then moved to Rugby Canada. Those who did watch any of the stream noticed that it was very choppy. So unfortunately, all we have is a highlights video that doesn't have any audio with it, and we just have the press releases from Rugby Canada as well. So the final score was Chile 15-36, Canada 15-25. So the Chile 15 have won the Americas Rugby Trophy. Congratulations to them. So we had tries by Ben Lesage. We had a try by Lindsay Stevens, and we also had a try by Josiah Mora. Kicking from the tee was Cooper Coates, who scored 2 out of 3 conversions, as well as 2 extra penalties as well. Unfortunately, the penalty count did go in the favor of Chile, who had Videla and Garafulik doing the kicking. Videla was able to score all 3 of their conversions, and as well as 4 penalties, while Garafulik was able to get a penalty as well. But the main thing that was given out in this game was yellow cards, with Canada getting 4 yellow cards and Chile getting 5. So Silva gets a yellow card in the 3rd minute for Chile. Then Rumble gets a yellow card in the 12th minute for Canada. Then there's a bit of handbags at dawn, with Iceman for Chile and Connor Keys both getting yellow cards in the 32nd minute. Then Corey Thomas gets a yellow in the 47th minute. Back over to Chile now, where Martinez gets a yellow card in the 53rd minute. Then Otero in the 61st, and then Garafulik in the 62nd. So for a moment they were down to, I believe, someone said that they were down to 12 players, but I think there should be enough overlap just for 2 minutes of play. Unfortunately, and fortunately, yeah, my words mixed up. That's when Stevens got his try. Of course, after that try, Martinez was back on the field, and then, but then it was a try for Chile from Vonken. At which point their lead is just extending and extending and extending and extending, and it's disappointing to see an 11-point difference, obviously coming from penalties. Referee Damian Schneider, not being afraid to reach into the pocket and show the players who's in charge. But yeah, as we said, tribute to the Rugby League World Cup that's currently going on at the moment. We also want to give a big shout out to rugbyers and hockeyers on Twitter. They were keeping the score. Their Chilean Twitter account, they were keeping the score for the game. Were able to get the updates of who was being yellow carded, who was scoring tries. That was good to see. And it's very hard to talk about this game because all we have are the tries being scored, the penalty kicks, not even the reason why they're penalties, and these press releases. So we watched the highlights of the game just before recording the podcast, and there were good incidents. I think Ben Lesage's try where he runs on and he obviously found a gap and was able to get the ball down. Yeah, that was great. But also as well, it was just a case of if anyone had been in his way, they would have been knocked back because he's just coming at such full force. Then when you're looking at the Chilean tries and you're just thinking oh my goodness, how were you able to let that happen? Like Escobar's try in the 19th minute, that was painful to watch because he's just breaking through tackles, getting
stick,
over.
yeah.
Yeah.
Mora's
And
try was sweet.
yeah, one good try was yeah, for Chile, their final try was just excellent ability to read the defense and able to spot a gap and go over there. So well done.
I meant Josiah Mora's try was sweet because
Yeah.
this is the Canadian podcast and I'm praising Canadian players.
I know, but I've got to be honest. I'm a fan of Canadian rugby, but I'm also a fan of rugby, and that try was really good. But Mora's try,
Mora's try. It was a good rugby try. It was a nice crossfield.
It is, but it was
tackles.
Yeah, I'm getting to the try, man. I'm building up to it because Mora, when he scored the try, he was dancing, avoiding tacklers, twisting around, getting that ball down, and yeah, just great to see. So I mean, we've had like Canada had 2 tries in the space of 7 minutes. Obviously, they conceded that try for Chile, but in a game which was defined by the boot more than anything from the penalty spot, it was great to see. Just final tries happening in like quick succession. I admit, in the highlights package because we didn't see this live. Yeah, and we say Canada 15. This was a pretty senior first 15 that came up with, which I can understand. As in, if the rumors are true that Chile and Brazil wanted these as fully capped games, these are the games that they were going to have their first 15 play. Also, Chile are doing a European tour in a couple of weeks during the November tests with, if I remember, they're playing against Romania and Tonga. Then they're facing Sir as well. So that's 3 games that they've got lined up. And then I know Canada are playing the Netherlands and Namibia, but I think it's the game against the Netherlands is the 12th, and I think Chile's game against Romania is on the weekend of the 5th of November, so a little bit earlier. And obviously, when you've got a team that's already qualified for the World Cup, you want to get more opportunities against opposition on your level, and you just want your team to be playing together more often as well, just so you can have that cohesiveness. So, Chile have already won the America's Rugby Trophy, and it's now the determinant of who's going to be second in the competition, as Canada will face Brazil, or I should say, Canada 15 face Brazil. You know what I mean. You know what I mean. And it was announced earlier today that we have the starting lineups for these teams. There's lots of changes from the game against Chile. Kyle Bailey steps up as captain with Connor Keys. That seems to be like the most senior players in this.
Yeah, no, this is great. Yeah, like
this is something that we've been wanting to see, and the purpose of this competition.
Like looking at the last game, like you said, it's difficult. It is difficult to talk about the game against Chile just because you can't really watch it, right? You're going you highlight backs and stuff. So it's tough to be like, hey, this guy played really well. This guy played really well. Some cool things though are obviously like it's nice to see Cooper Coates get a shot at 10. That's fun. Obviously made some kicks in the game. Again, can't really comment on how well he played otherwise, but that's nice. Josiah Mora in his first game, I guess not his first cap, but his first game for the men's the senior men's 15 side.
Well, he has enough caps from 7s. He doesn't need any more just a second.
And it's nice to see him get that try there. I thought that was a great play. But I think ultimately, like looking at the lineup last week where it was like, especially in the pack where the pack had Quattrin, Larson, Keys, Rumball, Bailey, and Thomas in it. It was kind of like, man, that's like I like the back line last week, but I was like, that's a lot of vets in the pack. But like I'm looking at this lineup now and seeing like the pack is going to be Murray, Steves. I mean, Stevens, Keys, Bailey are still there, but it's like so you got 3 vets, but 3, I guess, more veteran players. But like you get like Murray's still really young, Steves is still really young, Klimchuk, Rattan, and Vikalani all really young players. Like I like that mix.
Yeah,
it's good. I like the pack.
Yeah, Jason. I also mentioned that Jason Higgins was on the bench for the last game, but was withdrawn at the last minute. He is now
Yeah, and then
starting
Graydon Bout.
again. So yeah, it'd be great to see him.
Yeah,
Yeah, Robbie Povey and number 10 this time round.
yeah,
Coates moving
mixed
back
that up.
to
Right.
fullback, and
But I love 11 through 14 though, just
yeah,
being more so like you got Casey and Russell in the centers with Mora and Bowen on the wing, which like that's fun. Like this is what
yeah,
even the bench too. Emerson Pryor's there, Connor Young's there, Isaac Kelly's there, and then you got the McMullen twins, Talon and Dakota, locking up
yeah,
the two back spots on the bench
yeah,
there, right?
yeah.
And it's like this is the
Yeah,
type of lineup I wanted to see at this tournament,
yeah.
right?
This
Or at
is
these games,
as
yeah,
a developmental tournament, you want to have a little bit of experience coming in, and that's who you have with Keys and Bailey as locks, and
yeah.
then in on the bench you have like Quatrin, you have Corey Thomas and Ross Brody. I say that as more well, they actually have caps to their
I mean,
names,
yeah,
so
yeah, exactly. I mean,
that's what I mean. As in, like not like 5 years worth of
my
experience, but enough that they know the setup,
you
they
gotta
know how
mix a
it's go.
couple guys
Yeah,
in just for like the leadership on the field
yeah,
and stuff. I think it's good. My only change I would have, I guess, oh, okay, Bailey's the captain. I guess Kingsley Jones
yeah,
anointed Bailey as the captain. So
yeah.
because of that, let's say the only change I would make is I would have Kelly starting instead of Keys. Just
Okay.
because I'm like, yeah, like put like that's not like no disrespect to Connor Keys or anything. It's just
Yeah,
he's a more veteran
yeah, I get
player.
it. This is
I'm
this
more
is
interested in seeing
a
Kelly get more
developmental
time
tournament. You're meant to be developing new players. You're
developing
meant to
guys,
give
right?
them the
Uh,
opportunity to start in games
yeah,
they wouldn't otherwise start.
exactly. Right. And it's like, I personally like, again, same idea. Like, I love that, like, guys like Rumble and Lesage aren't going to be playing in this game.
Yeah,
Right. And it's, just because, like, this to me is what, like, this tournament should be about. And, like, it's the kind of developing. And even, like going into like the test games that are going to happen later. I mean, those are test matches, so you obviously they're a little bit more important and you would want to win those. But I hope to see like a handful of these younger players. Like I said, it's tough to really comment on who played well last week because we don't really have anything other than a 5-minute highlight reel to go off of. Um, so it's tough, but it's like I would like to see like a few more of these guys maybe like start integrating them into like the test side when they get there. Obviously, you're probably going to have more players, more of like your full proper test side level players for a test match.
yeah,
But I would still like to see that starting to integrate more. And I think like I know earlier I kind of complained a little bit about Canada maybe not wanting this to be a test match. But if not making it a test match allows a lineup like this, it's also just kind of like, even if Brazil and Chile wanted it, I'm like, I don't know, you're Canada. Who cares what Brazil and Chile want? Like,
yeah,
do what's best for us and going forward right now.
yeah.
So it's like I'm looking forward to seeing this lineup play on. It's Wednesday, right? Wednesday
Yes,
afternoon,
so
which
it'll
I guess
be
is today if you're listening to this on the day it comes out, hopefully. So
yeah. So yeah, it's the game against Brazil. It will be on this Wednesday. The kickoff time is 6:30 p.m.
oh,
Eastern
perfect. I'm not
time.
working at 6:30 p.m. That's
Yeah.
excellent.
6:30 p.m. Eastern Time, 3:30 p.m. Pacific on Wednesday, October 26th. They do say that broadcast details will be confirmed with the host
Mhm.
union and announced prior to the match. But if it's anything like the last game, it should probably be on YouTube. But we will keep you up to date on that, and we will let you know when we know. Right. Let's move on to laws of the game. Now, last week I did say that we were going to be talking about rucks. However, we're going to be talking about the strong weapon that has been helping Canada make its way to the quarterfinals of the World Cup, and that is the Maul. So the Maul consists of a ball carrier and at least one player from each team bound together and on their feet. So that means there has to be two players minimum from each side for a Maul to form. Once formed, a Maul must move towards the goal line. So the attacking team, in this case Canada, mainly they do their driving mauls in the 22, so they're going towards the goal line to score a try. The offside lines of a maul are the rearmost foot of the last player. So when a player must join a maul from an onside position, that means they have to join from that player at the back, and then their feet becomes the new offside line. So players who leave a maul must immediately return behind the offside line, and then they can rejoin the maul. So this is when you see Canada pushing towards the try line, you'll see the opposition players break off and then run back around to get to the back of the maul to have a defense. I mean, obviously it's Canada, so it's not going to work, but you got to try. So yeah, once a player joins from the onside position, they must bind to the rearmost player in the maul, and the head and shoulders must be no lower than the hips. So you can't be pushing in the butt, you can't be pushing on the legs, you got to be pushing around the torso area, must be higher than the hips. So during a maul, players must endeavor to stay on their feet and remain bound to the maul, and they must be moving forward. If the ball carrier is brought to the ground legally, they must make the ball available to play, and open play continues. During a maul, players must not intentionally collapse a maul, or, as I found out in the laws when I was reading it, jump on top of it. That is, don't do that ever. That doesn't make any logical sense.
The best part about that, though, is those are the type of is it okay? I'm looking at your notes. Is it written in brackets in the actual thing?
No, it is written in, and you want to know why? Because someone did it.
Someone did it, yeah,
and they had to be like, yeah, okay, this time okay, but don't do it again. And now we have to write it down because Greg did it one time.
In all sports, I love the laws. Well, in other sports, I'd say rules. But in all sports, I love the laws that are there because someone did it and they were like, damn it, we have to change this now.
Yeah. Other things that players must not do include attempt to drag an opponent out of a maul, or take any action to make opponents believe that the maul has ended when it's not, such as saying that if you say oh, the ball's out whilst the ball's still in play, and other players then remove themselves from the maul, that is an example of things you can't do.
Yeah.
Once a maul has started, if all defending players leave the maul can still continue. And defending players can rejoin provided they bind with the frontmost player of the attacking team. So you can't just grab someone at the back and pull them out.
Has any team ever done that? Try to stop the maul by just having all the defensive players leave? That seems like a bad idea.
Well, it's written down, so it probably has happened.
Just to be everybody just leaves, and then you just have a little, I don't know, a train of players walking down the pitch, I guess. Is that a thing? Is there a video of someone trying that? I would love that.
I'm sure one of our fans who's a fan of rugby and has this archive footage being like, this is my time. Please send that to us. Yeah. So if a maul has stopped moving towards the goal line, the attacking team has 5 seconds to get it restarted. So you'll notice in some games when the driving maul's going, it stopped, the referee calls once. So that is the indication for the team to get moving again. But if it gets stopped a second time, or the 5 seconds elapsed, the referee orders the attacking team to use the ball in open play within reasonable time. And that is the use it command. That also happens in rucks as well. Balls passed out, it's either a box kick or anything like that, but that is classified open play, and the maul has ended. A maul can legally end when the ball carrier leaves the maul, the ball is on the ground, or the ball carrier scores a try in this instance. So there were 2 occasions in the game again with Canada's game against the USA where Canada actually got penalized, and it was a USA penalty. So they were going for their maul and then they get a penalty. Why did that happen? So in the first instance, no American players joined. And because no American players joined, it is therefore not a maul. As such, Canada went into automatic mode. They had the ball, they went down, and they had, I think it was Sophie de Goody was at the front, and she passed the ball back. However, now that means that a player is in front of the ball when it's not a maul. That is an obstruction, and that is the penalty offense. And in the second instance, only one American player joined, and that wasn't enough to call a maul. So the same actions happened again. The ball gets passed back. It's classified as obstruction. That's the penalty. So the maul itself wasn't penalized. It was the fact that a maul wasn't called and the resulting actions caused the penalty. So
Yeah,
I hope that makes sense to all our
yes.
listeners and fans and understand why Canada were basically penalized twice at the maul
Oh,
when it
yeah.
wasn't.
I mean, like it's obviously a super important thing too, right? Because like the malls, as we've been seeing with Canada, like they can be like essentially weaponized. I mean, during this game, we talk about the 5 meter, like the malls from 5 meters out that are leading to all the tries and stuff. But during this game too, Canada was using a maul like everywhere on the field, like off a line out, right? Because they were gaining so many meters and momentum off of it, right? So like, and there was certain cases that they gained like 10, 15, 20 meters just by driving the maul forward, right?
Yeah.
As you kind of outline there, there's a lot of rules with how you can like bring a mole down and how to defend it. And quite frankly, it's kind of hard to do, right? Especially if you have a team that's proficient at it and they can get the mall rolling. Um
Yeah.
and I'll pull up like there was an instance in the Saracens Exeter game from this past weekend where Exeter was like rolling their maul towards the try line and Saracens Miko Vinapalo he kind of came in from the side and essentially just tackled the ball carrier, breaking up the maul, and that obviously ended up being a penalty try,
Yeah.
coming in from the offside position and stuff, right? But it's one of those plays too where it's like you look at it and it was like if he doesn't do that, they score anyways. If he does do it, they score, right? Like
Yeah.
it's a hard thing to bring down, but ultimately, like in that situation, he's probably better off just letting Exeter steamroll his team and score the try because now the try is scored and you have a yellow card, right? So it's a
Yeah.
dangerous
So yeah.
situation. But um
Yeah. It's a tough thing to manage, a tough thing to call, but obviously if you know the laws, then you know what works, what doesn't, and yeah, you're able to get a better hand on one of the many facets we love about this game.
yeah.
All right, so let's focus on some MLR news, and we're starting with the Toronto Arrows, as always, because there was the announcement of two players that have re-signed for MLR 2023. The first of them, Tyler Rowland. And the second is actually a player who is currently applying his trade overseas. He is the player that is on loan with Hong Kong Sandy Bay. Adrian Wadden has re-signed for MLR 2023. And depending on how Sandy Bay season goes, he may be arriving a little bit later in the MLR season, but hopefully back in time for the games in Toronto. Rugby ATL has announced that they have signed a multi-year deal to play at Silverbacks Park. You know, from what I could see on broadcast, it looks like a really good arena to have, moderately sized, and if you can get the fans there, it seems to be like a good home for the Rattlesnakes, and definitely something to look forward to over the coming years. And sadly, it has been announced this week that San Diego Legion's Chris Robshaw has announced his retirement from rugby. He mentioned that he has dislocated his shoulder 3 times within the past few years, and he believes that his body is telling him this is the time now. He has set up a charity with his wife and will be focusing on that, which focuses on giving opportunities for young children in both sport and music. So Chris Robshaw, obviously decorated player, captain England at 2015 World Cup, has played multiple years with England since, and then joined San Diego in 2021. When we had Michael Smith on the podcast, he was talking very positively about what he's learned from Chris Robshaw, obviously being on the back row as well. And yeah, he's been a great steward of the sport, and obviously, you never want to be forced to retire through injury, but that's the circumstances that we have when it comes to a full contact sport. So, just like to thank Chris for all he's done for San Diego, for MLR, and for rugby. Thank you very much.
Yeah. Yeah, obviously Rob Shaw's a unreal player. It's a legend. And It's a kind of unfortunate. It feels like his time in San Diego was pretty marred by injuries, which obviously is, a factor in his decision to retire. But I still think it'll be one of those things like going forward that it's you know the longer that this league lasts, and in 10 years it'll be cool looking back on the league, seeing that guys like Chris Robshaw played in MLR and stuff.
Yeah.
Right. And if the league has a lot of success going forward, like we'll look back and as North American rugby fans, we'll look back and remember that he was one of the first like legends to come over in that group with that. I'm sure we'll have guys like and names like Foden and Nanu that'll be kind of part of that, like that group that's come over. It's obviously rugby ATL going back to Silverbacks Park. That's cool. Love to see teams, locking up some stadiums and, growing the business side of it a lot.
So, as we said, the Women's Rugby World Cup continues, and you can watch that all on TSN. Again, the game against the USA will be 11:30 p.m. Eastern Time on Saturday, the 29th of October. The Premiership and URC is available on Sportsnet, and the America's Rugby Trophy match between Canada 15 and Brazil 15 will be on Wednesday, October the 26th at 6:30 p.m. Eastern Time. Not yet confirmed where it will be on. Maybe it'll be on YouTube again, maybe it'll be on different channels, but when we know, we'll let you know. And if you want to keep up to date with us, you can find us on all social media platforms, including Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and TikTok at Rouge Rugby. If you enjoyed watching our podcast, as well as getting any extra videos, we are on our YouTube channel, again, at Rouge Rugby. And if you enjoyed listening to this podcast, you can do so, again, on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and Anchor FM. If you want to follow us individually, Derek, where can they find you?
You can find me at Reset the Jet across all social media platforms.
And you can find me at Hardman, spelled H4RDMAN. Well, Derek, thank you for joining me for another episode of the Rouge Rugby podcast. And thank you all for joining us as we talk about real Canadian rugby. We hope you can join us again next time.